I've seen YouTube videos, they say that listen to 888 Hertz. You will manifest money instantly in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
What is your opinion about that?
I do think that a great deal of our reality is perception. So if a high hertz or a high frequency is giving you the perception that you are, I don't know, maybe you've got more confidence, right? To dial it back to the Admiral discussion. You come into the room like you own it. You just have that type of persona. It's going to affect how people interact with you, right? It's just going to affect your reality anyway. So I think it's similar to maybe praying for a job, right? You're praying for a job, you want a job so bad, you're like, please, whoever you ascribe to religiously, right? Please help me. I need this job. But if you're not out there also applying for the job.
So according to you, money doesn't rain, one has to work for it.
Yes. If it was possible, right? I think, everybody would have more than enough. You could just simply ask for it and, it would fall in your lap.
Can any specific sound take us to our past lives or future lives or clear our past karma?
I'm sure there's competing research on that. From a personal level, for me, I think so. Yes, I do. I have found deeply moving experiences in trance.
Can sound therapy be customized for specific conditions like anxiety, trauma, or chronic stress?
Yes, it can be. I think for trauma, I think slower and lower frequencies can be more comforting. They can calm the nervous system, right? For anxiety, like a rhythmic pattern, okay? Similar to a drum, right? There's a reason there are so many different cultures that have utilized drums to celebrate, to mourn, to maybe move beyond whatever reality they happen to be in, right? Like a vision quest, a shamanic utilization. Yeah, I think for some medical applications that are incredibly promising. I was with, again, Dr. Lee Barton talks about 40 hertz, and they had a study where they had a patient or several patients that have Alzheimer's from mild to severe symptoms of the disease. And they prescribed listening and then also sitting in this chair or specific overlay of a chair so you can feel the frequency, right? Not just hear it. Again, the difference, right, between being in the room with the orchestra and hearing the orchestra on a recording.
Dr. Jennifer Couldry, founder of Soul Ecotherapy, combines operatic voice, hypnotherapy, and sound healing to help clients access their inner blueprint for healing and transformation. If you are an author ready to self-publish or share your voice with the world, visit blazegoldburst.com, your portal to publishing, visibility, and global impact. Also, support this movement by diving into Lord's Ordinary Children by Gita Shripani and Reversed Order Existence by Blaze Goldburst.
Welcome to the show, Dr. Jennifer.
Hello.
How are you?
Hi, I'm wonderful. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. What exactly is sound therapy and how does it work on the mind and body from a scientific standpoint?
Definitely. Sound therapy is the utilization of frequency and rhythm to create a relaxed and balanced environment in the body and then also in the room, right? As far as scientific, the nature in a scientific way of explaining it would be entrainment. One example of entrainment is in a chorus. If you have 30 plus people singing the same music, breathing at the same moment, right, and following the same rhythmic pattern, it is natural that their heartbeat will actually synchronize. There's been some research done in that I find incredibly fascinating. There's several different doctors, but this one is actually in, I believe he's in the Netherlands. And so it was just fascinating research. But there's also been a lot of research in specific frequencies as well, like 40 hertz frequency. Dr. Lee Barton, there's a YouTube video that he talks about music as medicine and cellular regeneration and ways that they have used this specific frequency to help patients that are experiencing symptoms of Alzheimer's, and that they've seen some increase in neuroplasticity. Which is, that's very exciting research. That video is from, I think, about 7 years ago, but I'm sure there's been incredible progress since then.
The audience would like to know more about your background, how your journey started.
Oh, sure. I have a doctorate in music. My doctorate is in vocal performance. I have always been fascinated by music from elementary school until now. And then it naturally migrated into more of a scientific view and a neuroscience view. Recently, it's actually something I discovered. I've always been fascinated by sound. And the way that it can affect the body, right? And so it's grown now into my practice at Soul Ecotherapy in partnership with Doc Hypnosis, and we do hypnotherapy, EMDR, and clinical sound therapy.
What is precision resonance therapy, and how is it uniquely different from other vibrational healing approaches?
Sure. Precision resonance therapy is the moniker that I have put around the type of practice that we employ at Soul Ecotherapy. And it includes the vibrational fields of the body, the energy of the body, paying attention to the person, right? We do one-on-one individual sound therapy. So it's tailored to you, right? If you wanted to work on, anxiety, maybe you're feeling incredibly stressed out, right? From all the stimulus in our world. We're constantly barraged by by email, by phone calls, by text messages, right? Just constant stimulus. It helps you to just recalibrate, to take a moment for you, to set the intention for the session, like anxiety relief. And it relieves stress and helps you find more mental clarity. It can also be helpful for some pain, like fibromyalgia, for other medical aspects. It's definitely not it's not a placebo, right? It's not like a wonder cure. It involves other forms of medicine, in tandem. But it can help increase blood flow in the body. It can help lower your blood pressure. It can help lower your heart rate. And all of those effects, right, they're good for you. Right? There's a reason when you relax, you feel a little bit better. You're less stressed out, and sound can help you get to that state a little bit faster and more just more easily, right, without any type of medicine or other intervention.
Can you break down how frequencies influence the nervous system, emotions, and physical well-being?
Yes, frequencies work with the autonomic nervous system, so they influence heart rate variability, your brainwave state, as well as your vagal nerve that runs, all the way down your spine, right? They've actually done research so where they can see the electronic frequencies or the electric frequencies, right, in your body, and they can see the increase in blood flow. They can see the changes. Also, sound vibrations can stimulate, again, circulation. They can really reduce muscle tension, and support your innate, healing of your body,
Is there a measurable correlation between specific sound frequencies and improvements in mental health or chronic pain?
Yes, I think if you go out on YouTube and you just search for relaxing music, right, you will find many, many videos that are at specific frequencies, like 528 hertz, right, which is often associated with cellular repair. So pain relief, better blood flow, all of those things, as well as 432 hertz, which is the calming frequency, right? That's the one that a lot of people are like, reach your meditative, state, reach your ultimate higher, connection to spirit, or and it's utilizing the innate response that your body has to those frequencies because it's measurable.
What's the role of the brain in this process, and how do sound waves alter neural pathways or brain wave states?
Oh, this one is a very interesting question. I think you could do an entire podcast on this question because it's very deep. It's altering your state, right? Your beta state, right, which is your regular alertness. You and I talking right now, right, to try to get to more of an alpha or more relaxed state, and then ideally to theta, right, where you're in like a meditative state. So over time, like repeated exposure can improve your neuroplasticity too in your brain. Dr. Lee Barton, he talks about using 40 hertz specifically with Alzheimer's patients. And it's not just hearing the frequency, it's also feeling it in your body. And that's the difference between maybe listening to a YouTube video, right, and experiencing relaxation, or actually being in the room, similar to going to an orchestra concert, right? It's amazing to hear it through speakers, right? But to actually be there and feel that I'm getting chills, but like to feel that wall of sound, right? To just how it impacts you. The way that emotion can pull, music can pull emotion from you that you may not have been experiencing before, right? So it's all speaking to the nature of what it is to be human and to help you find that equilibrium.
What are the main tools you use, like tuning forks, singing bowls, and vocal toning? And how do you determine which one to use?
Oh, sure. It depends on what the client would like to work on. For me, and I also speak to each person individually, right? Because I do tailored sessions. So we have that flexibility and opportunity to decide. Maybe you like drums more. Maybe today you don't want drums because it's just been, you've had too much overload in regular, your regular day, what's happening. So I can choose from a variety of instruments in my practice. I have metal singing bowls. I have crystal singing bowls. I can just show you an example of one. This is one of the crystal bowls that I have. This is about a 10-inch bowl. It looks really large right now, but if it was as big as it looked, I'd probably have a hard time picking it up. But they're just beautiful. You can get a bunch of different frequencies depending on what you're looking for. There's also different types of mallets. This is a silicone mallet that works better, I think, with the crystal bowls. You can get more of a resonating, like peaceful tone with this one. But anyway, just a small example of some of the instruments that I have. But again, I tailor it to what the person is wanting to work on. So prior to the session beginning, we set our intention, right? So if your intention would be to relax, which a lot of people need to, and I completely understand. I think we all do. It's natural and it's needed in our world, especially. Everything just keeps getting faster. But if your intention is to relax, maybe we would play more calming tones, maybe things that resonate a little bit longer, a combination of singing bowls to create almost like a tapestry of sound. Yeah, that's what I like to do.
How can a client decide what tool is right for them?
Oh, that's wonderful. I think part of that involves some experimentation. I've also found like just a specific example that I find really fascinating with my clients when I work with them. There's this instrument that's called an ocean drum. It's not very complex. I don't have one with me, or I would show you, but you can look up ocean drum. It's just a container in a spherical pattern, right, that has like a plastic on either side of it. And then inside are these small little ball bearings or seeds or beads, things like that. So that when you move the drum from side to side, it creates the sound of ocean waves. Similar to a rain stick, right? When you turn it up and you have the sound of like the rain. But the ocean drum is a perfect instrument for someone who is new to any type of sound therapy or music therapy, because it's very forgiving. It's easy to use, and it forces you to slow down. If you want to have the sound of an ocean wave, right, you can't just take it and go, you're not going to get you're not going to get the experience that you're looking for. So it encourages you to slow down, to take a breath, to find the space that you're looking for, right? And then gradually create that sound of the waves. And you naturally also start to move back and forth, to sway, right? Which is also an indication of a more relaxed state. There's this thing called the hypnotic sway that you will see in people when they're going into trance as well. If you see people at a club, jamming out to a bunch of music, right, you'll naturally start seeing people sway, and they'll start swaying together, and you can see the patterns in an audience. So it's similar to that.
You must have had thorough experience in music.
Yes, I've been part of the Arizona Opera Chorus, in particular, for 15 years, and I have thoroughly enjoyed that experience. I've been on stage with some amazing people, including Frederica von Stade and Dmitry Horostovsky. It's astounding to have the experience to create a village, or to create, even a trial scene, or something more, more chaotic, right? Yeah.
How is sound therapy integrated with practices like hypnotherapy or EMDR in your sessions?
Oh, yes. Sound therapy is, it will affect your subconscious. It will affect your body, even if you don't think it will, or even if you don't notice it. I think that's one of the most fascinating things about the field in particular, is that you can have a client come in maybe who is perhaps skeptical, or hasn't worked for them in the past, right? They've experienced this before, and they're like, I don't think it'll work for me. I can't be hypnotized, things like that. And you'd be surprised. Most people can be, if you are willing to experience that shift, if you're willing to experience trance. To integrate it into EMDR and hypnotherapy, you can use it in guided meditative journeys. For example, I have a recording with Dr. Deal where he is doing the meditation, or the induction into trance, right? Moving you into a meditative state, counting down from 10 all the way down to 1, right? And just following that pattern, getting more relaxed, feeling at ease, feeling peaceful, right? 4, all the way down now, connecting to a safe space. And then you can combine that with these beautiful tones that are already relaxing and generate that feeling in you. And I think it can be doubly powerful. I think that really is the future of hypnotherapy, to utilize more sound and to integrate those together. EMDR utilizes light to affect where you look. You can use just your fingers with your clients, right, to have them follow, your fingers. And while you're doing that, while you are looking at that, a client could be encouraged to explore a traumatic event again, but again, in a safe space. You don't need to necessarily go into as much detail as you would like with a therapist, like for, talk therapy or cognitive behavioral therapy, where you go through the whole thing, right? And you almost in essence, relive it. With EMDR, it's more of a focused approach where you think about the experience, but while you're thinking about it, you don't have to talk it through. You could just give it like a specific name. Maybe you just want to say the color. Maybe you just want to say red. And so you talk about the color red, right? How does this make you feel, the color red, right? From a 1 to 10, what is your maybe stress or pain level or discomfort? Okay. And then while you are doing that, then you are engaging the brain in a different way by having that person follow with their eyes the light for EMDR, or to follow someone's fingers, right? And when you talk to someone, right, if you talk to someone and they are bringing up a memory, usually there's a specific direction that you will look. It's natural. It just happens. So maybe you look down to think about like a childhood memory or something, something happy. Maybe if you're thinking about food or something, maybe you look up, it depends on the person, right? But if you can have that person think of that and then change where their eyes are looking, you are subtly rewiring those connections in the brain. And that when they think of that experience again, they cannot find the same pathway. So it can affect that traumatic experience in a very positive way, because it shifts it. And that shows that person, that shows that client, right, that it's possible to move past, right, to not let it affect you the same way every time. People talk about triggers and those things as well, right? If you know, first off, what your trigger is, then you can work through it. You can find different ways of approaching it, right? You can approach it in a safe environment so that you can control more what your reaction might be in an environment where you're not expecting that trigger.
So I have a question like, can any specific sound take us to our past lives or future lives or clear our past karma?
That's a fascinating question. I think that, I'm sure there's competing research on that. From a personal level, for me, I think so. Yes, I do. I have found deeply moving experiences in trance, in meditation. If you think about it, you could also find this ecstatic state when you find people that are involved in religion that pray very heavily, and it's something that you feel. You can't just put your finger on it. I can't just give you a piece of chocolate, right? And be like, it's just like this. Here, have this chocolate, right? Because it's different for each person. What is it that moves you? Like, why does a certain piece of music make one person cry, and somebody else like agitated? It's all personal. And I think that's one of the benefits of being able to tailor your sound therapy session, is that you can work on what specifically you would like to work on. And we do past life regression. At Doc Hypnosis, we have a gentleman who focuses predominantly on past life regression. And there's a phrase that Bob Burns says. He's the creator of the Swan. It's a Swan protocol. He's a hypnotherapist out of Scotland. And his book is called Real or Imagined. And I love the title anyway, but the concept of that is, does it really matter, right? Does it really matter if it's real or imagined, if it impacts you in a very positive way and helps you move through, a traumatic event, or helps you move through a painful emotion, maybe helps you think about, okay, in a past life, I was an admiral, right? I was an admiral on a ship, right? So I had, hundreds of soldiers under my command, or naval, hundreds of seamen under my command, right? So if you think about it that way, whether it was real or imagined, you can embody what an admiral would be, right? You can take on that confidence. You can take on that responsibility, right? You can take on that persona. I'm the admiral. I'm here. This is what we need to do. Everybody scramble, right? So I think past life regression and spiritual applications can be very beneficial to clients.
And also to clear their past karma.
Yes. There's an example that I don't know if Dr. Deal spoke to you about this. I found it fascinating. There was a client that he had that did a past life regression, and this client experienced being in World War II and being a small child without enough to eat. And I mean, it's very sad, of course, but how that applied to them in this particular kind of incarnation or life, for lack of a better way to describe it, right, was that this person wanted to control their eating habits. And they felt just like something was going on, that for some reason they just couldn't. They just were incredibly consumed by needing to have food like constantly. And it was almost a panicked feeling about it. And so after the past life regression, this person realized this may be the cause, right? So real or imagined, if it helps this person to have a more healthy relationship with food, if they're able to not feel so panicked, if they're able to make, more healthy choices for themselves, I think that's wonderful. I think that's a positive outcome that maybe you couldn't scientifically measure per se, but for her, that was the chocolate, right? That was the chocolate that worked for her to find where she wanted to go and to make, positive progress.
Can sound therapy be customized for specific conditions like anxiety, trauma, or chronic stress?
Yes, it can be. I think for trauma, I think slower and lower frequencies can be more comforting. They can calm the nervous system, right? For anxiety, like a rhythmic pattern, okay, similar to a drum, right? There's a reason there are so many different cultures that have utilized drums to celebrate, to mourn, to maybe move beyond whatever reality they happen to be in, right? Like a vision quest, a shamanic utilization. Yeah, I think for some medical applications that are incredibly promising. I was with again, Dr. Lee Barton talks about 40 hertz, and they had a study where they had a patient or several patients that have Alzheimer's from mild to severe symptoms of the disease, and they prescribed listening and then also sitting in this chair or specific overlay of a chair that so you can feel the frequency, right? Not just hear it. Again, the difference, right, between being in the room with the orchestra and hearing the orchestra on a recording, right? I mean, both are beneficial, but you're going to get a completely different experience if you were there when somebody hits that timpani. You're going to really feel it. So with 40 hertz, they found that 40 hertz is the same frequency that your neurons fire at in your brain when you are thinking, when you are recalling a memory, when you are, utilizing your brain. So the idea was that if they could play that frequency, they could encourage that, that the firing of those synapses, right, those neurons, to help kind of counteract Alzheimer's, which is that plaque buildup inside your brain. And then, of course, all of the awful symptoms that you experience from that. And they had a lady that they prescribed for her to do, I think it was 30-minute sessions 3 times a week for 6 weeks. And they had found that her cognitive capability when she was tested again had actually increased, and she could remember more than before they started, that's fascinating all by itself. But then they encouraged her, because she was moving away, to keep with the process, right? To just keep doing it. And they ran into the same lady 3 years later, and she had not experienced any regression. So she was still at the same level 3 years later, even with an Alzheimer's diagnosis, that's astounding. Because as you know from a lot of the studies, unfortunately, people don't usually have that experience, right? And this is something that you can do without any type of medication, right? There's no side effect from listening to and feeling, 40 hertz. There's no negative side effect, right? There's nothing in the body that you experience. You're not putting a specific chemical or anything like that in you. It's just a natural thing that anybody can do.
What about higher frequencies, according to you?
Higher frequencies. I think, again, it depends on the person and what you're looking for. I think higher frequencies can move you more toward a ethereal state. To like if you think about it, when people talk about like maybe what angels might sound like, or what higher spiritual energies might sound like, it's usually this higher pure quality of a tone. So I would think that a higher frequency could get you closer to maybe a more open place, in a meditative state. Yeah, that's what I would utilize it for.
I have a curious question. Like, I've seen YouTube videos, they say that listen to 888 hertz. You will manifest money instantly in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
What is your opinion about that?
That's interesting. I do think that a great deal of our reality is perception. So if a high hertz or a high frequency is giving you the perception that you are, I don't know, maybe you've got more confidence, right? To dial it back to the Admiral discussion. You come into the room like you own it. You just have that type of persona. It's going to affect how people how people interact with you, right? It's just going to affect your reality anyway. So I think it's similar to maybe praying for a job, right? You're praying for a job, you want a job so bad, you're like, please, whoever you ascribe to religiously, right? Please help me. I need this job. I need this job. But if you're not out there also applying for the job, there's only so much, there's only so much that energy, there's only so much that deities or spirit can do for you, right? You have to be working. I think it's a Picasso quote. I'm not sure, but it's something about, like creativity and inspiration is there, but it has to find you working. And I just love that. It's definitely a shared process. Yeah.
So according to you, money doesn't rain. One has to work for it.
Yes. Yes. If it was possible, right? I think, everybody would have more than enough. You could just simply ask for it and, it would fall in your lap.
By simply listening to 888 Hertz.
Yes. Just listen to 88 Hertz all the time. And then, you'll have more money than, billionaires. It would be convenient if it worked that way. But yeah, I think that just like anything in life that's worth doing is going to require effort and time. Definitely. I had a friend ask me, if you could go back to being, 25 again, would you do it? And I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, if I can take all my knowledge and all my experience and my degrees, sure, I'll do it. But I don't know if I want to, it took a great deal of effort, right? And time and energy to get to the point where you finish it in any type of degree or any type of certificate or trade program. My father was a plumber, right? So, working to get to any level of expertise, it's going to require time and effort.
Okay. What does a typical private session at Soul Ecotherapy look and feel like?
Sure. Private session at Soul Ecotherapy. I have my own studio. It's an office inside of a medical plaza. I have a chase lounge so that you can sit down and you can recline. It's cushy and comfortable. I have blankets. I encourage my clients to take off their shoes so that they can, relax and just feel comfortable and calm. I also have these warming face masks for my clients if they would like to use them. They have a mild fragrance. I've got lemongrass and eucalyptus and tea tree. I also have some that are unscented. So if you just want the lovely warm, but you would rather not have, any type of aromatherapy, we can do that too. And I have low light in my studio, so it's more calm and peaceful. It's similar to candlelight. I have some battery operated ones for just safety. I have some real candles too sometimes that I will utilize, and a low light lamp so that you can chill out and relax. And I think one of the greatest compliments that I get from my clients is when they fall asleep. If I've just met you, we just walked off the street, right? I'm like, hi, Blaze, come on in. Can you imagine how comfortable you would have to feel to be able to just fall asleep? That's the ultimate, you're very vulnerable in a sleep state. I find it very flattering and encouraging when my clients feel safe enough that they can fall asleep during a session. I've actually had quite a few people fall asleep and snore, which I think is wonderful. And I'm playing these lovely singing bowls and you hear, it's wonderful. It's a good environment. I play the singing bowls and other instruments for approximately an hour. I also utilize LED for additional color therapy in the background. So there are like flashing lights or moving lights like up in a pattern. It's very kind of calm. And it is based on the sounds that the bowls are making or the sounds that, that we are making. If we do any vocal toning on like a neutral vowel, like just an ah sound, if you came into the studio, we would pick a pitch that's, kind of comfortable. Like, when people sing happy birthday, most people can sing, happy birthday, right? So you can start with a ah and just take a breath and just intone, ah, ah, right? There's no prescribed notion of how perfect it has to be. Like that's not what it's about, right? It's about generating the sound from inside you, and feeling the vibration, in your chest, in your throat. Sometimes when I sing opera, I can feel my teeth vibrate. That's amazing. That's generating a lot of sound, right? I don't sing opera at my clients, but that would be really funny. Come in for sound therapy. Oh, be like, oh no, please. But yeah, the session it's individually tailored for what you would like to work on. We set our intention together. So if you told me, Dr. Couldry, I'd like to work on maybe manifesting. I'd like to work on manifesting, money. It could be manifesting money. And so then how do you interpret how you would manifest money, like from a soundscape? Like what sound would encourage that in you, right? And then we could play around with different instruments a little bit. Maybe the ocean drum would really vibe with you, and you'd want to sit there for a little bit and play the ocean drum for, like a minute or so until you felt what that flow might feel like.
How many days do they need to do it?
How many days? It depends again on what you're trying to, do, what's your intent. I have folks that will come in like for one session a month. I have clients that would like to come once a week. Then I'll have other clients that want to buy like a package, like they want to buy 6 sessions that they can utilize within the next year. And then they just come as they would like to and schedule them, and we go from there. So it's highly customizable. I rely on my clients, to help set the intent, right? So we can discuss it together to find what the best way forward is for you.
Is client participation required during the session, or is it more of a passive meditative experience?
That is such a good question. And it depends on the person, of course, but I have found for myself and for my client participation, at least in the realm of, I am here for this sound therapy. I am here to receive whatever you're willing to give me, right? Whatever frequencies the bowl creates, whatever, whatever vibration I feel, while I'm sitting in the room from the drum, in that regard, yes, it does require participation, in the aspect of just being open. Just be open to the experience. I have had clients come in that are like incredibly skeptical. They don't feel like it's going to do anything for them. And I'm like, that's fine. Let's see what happens, right? Let's sit down. Let's put the warming mask on you. Oh, I don't want that. I don't want the mask thing. I'm like, well, that's fine. You don't have to have it, right? It's customizable. It's individual. What is going to work? What is going to work for you? I can do the same thing over and over, and that's fine, but I'm looking for what is going to give you that shift. What is going to help you feel better? What is going to help you feel more confident? What is going to help you relax? What's going to make you snore? Any of those things that I can find. I had a client describe it. It was very funny. He said, I came in for the session. I sat in the chair and I listened and I thought, oh, those are some nice sounds. Those are nice. And then after a little bit, I thought, oh, those are really nice. I like that particular, I like that singing bowl. I like that combination of sounds. And then he's sitting for a little bit longer and he goes, and then I was like, oh. And he just crashed out. And I love that, though. He said that he actually slept the best he had that night in a long time because he has problems with insomnia. So, getting that parasympathetic response in your body, getting your heart rate to slow down, getting your blood to flow, your circulation to increase, getting your breath to slow down, right? Even just talking about it, I'm naturally doing it because it makes a difference, right? There's a reason that there are full meditative practices that just involve breathing, right? There's breath work too. All of these things, I think, are ways to help you get to a state that's natural for you. We tend to just run around in this amplified state all the time. And we forget, oh yeah, there's this peaceful state that's perfectly natural for me. I can get there, like when you're sitting by a river, you don't even have to have any other sound, just the birds, the gentle flow of the water. You will subconsciously start to relax. And then even if you're not aware of it, and then you'll become aware of it, and it can be even more powerful, I think.
So, do you also do Reiki?
I have explored a little bit of Reiki. I'm not currently certified, but I am interested in learning more about it. I think I naturally gravitate that way anyway during my sessions, especially if I find I think I know as a person what it feels like to be so anxious and wound up that you're having a really hard time relaxing. And so I can recognize those patterns in people. Like if you're tight, you're kind of like this in the chair, maybe you're holding the blanket like this, it's like, ooh, okay, you're going to need some deeper resonance. I'm going to go play my big crystal ball, that's like 30 inches around. Like it's I call it like the grandma, like let's play the grandma crystal ball so that you can feel, that deep tone, just to feel safe. Yeah, I think that's what I like to do.
So, according to you, you can see a person and tell them what kind of sound therapy they would need just by seeing them.
By seeing someone, well, I could, because there are all these visual cues, right? If you study people at all, right? If you're an observant person, which I just tend to be naturally, just 'cause the way I'm wired, I think I am a little bit on the on the neurodivergent or neurospicy spectrum as a person, and so I tend to pay very close attention to people naturally, just anyway. And if you watch, if you pay attention, you can see, you can tell when somebody lowers their shoulders. You can tell when somebody is maybe getting ready to go into trance and they swallow and they take a breath. Maybe their eyes start blinking a little bit, and then they close their eyes down and take another breath. All those things, all those visual cues of the body relaxing. And so, yeah, I mean, I also obviously talk to my clients, right? What are you wanting to work on? They may come in saying they want to manifest money. I want to manifest money. I'm worried. I'm worried about my rent. I'm worried about my kids, all these things. But at the core of that, perhaps that's anxiety. At the core of that, there's this fear. There's a thought that you can't relax, that you can't reach that state. And the simple truth is you can. It's natural. You can get there. And if you're willing to come with me, we can get there together. We can go together.
So, do you also read auras?
That's a fascinating question as well. I tend to lean a little more toward the spiritual side of things as well. So I am not as visual as some people may be, but I can feel the energy of somebody. I know when I know when people are upset. I can feel it. You can feel it in the room. You can feel the energy. I mean, we are all vibrating all the time, right? I mean, we just are. We're constantly vibrating. The universe is vibrating. We're vibrating. So it's just a bunch of sound everywhere bouncing off of each other, or frequencies, for that matter. Even though we can't hear them, we're constantly interacting with each other. If you give yourself permission, right? Again, real or imagined. Thank you, Bob Burns, right? If you think of it, real or imagined, at the end of the day, if it helps you, does it matter? I mean, if you're able to sleep again, if you're able to not be as stressed out about if you're going to pay your rent or take care of your kids or, all those things that everyone is concerned about, if you can find a peaceful state, then you can think about things a little clearer. And I think you can reach that goal, whatever you're looking for.
What exactly are binaural beats and how are they created technically?
Binaural beats are frequencies that are slightly, I don't want to say off, but they're different. Like, for example, if you had a 210 hertz frequency that you're playing in one ear and a 200 in the other, you're going to hear that difference between them. And then your brain is going to create what's called like a phantom beat. So you're going to create this other frequency. So it perceives it as a difference between the two, and then you naturally entrain to that different frequency, that third frequency. And I think it's the way of, and this is my interpretation, is the way of your mind, your body trying to find that equilibrium, right? Trying to reconcile the two resonances. So when you're in a sound therapy session, for example, if you have a sound that can be rather dissonant and create kind of that tension, while you're listening to it, it's natural for your body to be kind of responding in like a tense way. Like, it just naturally happens. And then when you have that resolution, right, or when the tones become more peaceful and more calm, just more maybe melodic to the Western ear, for example, then you find that place of relaxation, right? If you're listening to music, there's, right before the resolution of the chord, right, all this tension builds, right, in a piece of orchestration music, concerto, or in Beethoven's music, right, ba 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 ba, right. When it finally hits the resolution, you're like, oh, there's this feeling of satisfaction. It's natural in the body to feel that. Some people get goosebumps. The hair on their arms will rise up. Some people don't, and that's fine. Either way, you can still be profoundly impacted by sound.
So, how are they created? I mean, for a beginner, how would they understand that? How is it created? The technique,
The technique for binaural beats, or
frequencies,
yeah,
and
frequencies. Wow. You could get into the physics of sound waves and patterns. This is like a whole field all by itself. I have to admit, I am not a fully fledged expert in physics, but I find it fascinating, especially acoustics and the study of sound. It's a vibration, right? A sound wave. The only way for us to see it visually, you can see it behind me, right? In my pattern here, like that's an example of a sound wave. The only way for us to see it visually is to make that wave pattern. But it's more of an oscillation. It's like a circular pattern and a circular organization to the structure of it. I think to create like a binaural beat, you could start off with there's all kinds of stuff out there, right, on YouTube again as well. But I think I would experiment personally with like different instruments. I would experiment with different tones, like in bowls. Again, when it creates that tension, that dissonance, you can hear it. Also, you can hear the overtone. Like when you play a crystal bowl or a metal singing bowl, those are really great. The Tibetan singing bowls or Himalayan singing bowls. When you play a singing bowl, you can go around the rim, right, to create the sustained tone. And then you can also strike it. And if you do it at the same time, right, where you have the ringing sound and then you strike the bowl, you'll hear another tone. There's another overtone. There's another sound that happens. I think that's an example of that creation of another tone, right, that wasn't there until you put the two together. Throat singing is another example too.
also, would there be several types of frequencies or some limited number, according to you?
I think you could use any frequency. You can create any type of pattern. I think the sky's the limit. Why not? That's why we have so many different types of music, right? We've got, techno music, we've got trance, we've got, I don't know, folk music, the orchestra, right? And then just playing just the voice all by itself. Yeah, I would encourage people to experiment. Find what works for you. different sounds are going to resonate with you differently, right? You're gonna feel something different, and you're also going to experience something different if the music is live, or if you're in the room with the music, or if you're listening in headphones and it's more of a like the headphones you're wearing, right? It's a more enclosed, almost intimate experience, right? Because it's almost happening inside your brain. It feels like you're generating the sound from inside of you, even though it's coming from outside in. And one of the first senses that we develop as a little tiny fetus is the ear sound. That's our first sense that develops. So it makes sense that it would be incredibly important, right, to you, just to your well-being. And even folks that have some hearing, maybe hearing limitations or hearing impairments, can still have a shift or a change from the vibration alone.
Can different binaural frequencies target specific brain states like theta for meditation or delta for deep sleep?
Yes, yes, they can. And I think like a quick breakdown would be like 0.5 to 4 hertz, like for deep sleeping or cellular healing. A little bit higher, like 4 to 8 for meditation, and then alpha, of course. I think that with the binaural frequencies, especially for a neurospicy brain, which I find fascinating, is that it can create a feeling of calm, even though it maybe to the outside ear or to another ear, it feels chaotic because you have different things happening at the same time, right? But there's so much going on that, someone who is odd HD, AUDHD, or ADHD can pick up on all of those frequencies at the same time and almost distill them down to a more simplistic state. And it has this fascinating effect. I've listened to a few things that just come up across on YouTube or TikTok. It's like, listen to this, put this here, listen to it. What happens? What do you feel? How does it affect you? And I think it's counterintuitive that something that may feel or sound chaotic to somebody could actually generate a feeling of calm and a peaceful place. We run into this too, like when we're doing street hypnosis or doing, small examples of hypnosis on the street, like at a First Friday art festival. There's so much happening. You've got DJs, you've got vendors, you've got people walking around with bright, colorful clothing. It's pretty much every stimulus you could possibly have all at once. And you're asking somebody to stop and to focus down on you, right? To look at this light, look here, relax. Take a deep breath, and you can generate a state of trance in the most chaotic environment. And it's very counterintuitive, but I think binaural frequencies, binaural beats utilizes that same concept. Sometimes overstimulus can get you to a point where you can really focus because the brain is like, this is too much. I've decided we're just going to look at this. We're just going to look at this piece of chocolate. That is all, right? So that's a way. I think that's a good example of how you can utilize it, right? Gosh, think about like if you've had exams, right? And you're in a room with all these other people, and you're trying to take your final exam, right? It's such a horrible environment for someone to try to excel and to remember all the data they've got in their brain about music theory, about psychology or whatever your test is on, right? I think it would be fascinating to see if there's some research out there on creating a more hospitable environment for exams.
I have a question like listening to any random song, sad songs, and all that stuff. Does it affect our brain?
Yes, it can definitely affect your brain. You can see the different aspects or the different areas of the brain too that light up based on what you're listening to. They've done quite a few studies. I don't know specifically the doctor or the scientist, but there was one that I think was fascinating where they had an opera singer who was undergoing like an MRI. And while he was going through the MRI machine, they had him singing various pieces of music. And you can see the different parts of the brain that light up. Also, when you are engaged in music, whether listening to it or performing it, all the areas of the brain light up. It's like it's like a party. It's a street fair just in your head, and it's amazing how those sounds can affect you. And if you think about it, if you have ever heard a song, and even the first time you've heard the song, it makes you cry, right? That's an example of an emotional response, right? If there's a song that makes you angry, or all those breakup songs where you're like, yeah, take that, yeah, we're never getting back together, Taylor Swift, right? She's wonderful at the breakup songs. That's all utilizing music to generate an emotional response in the person, right? As an artist, the whole reason for creating music like that, or art, or literature, or dance, right, is to express beyond words the profound just confusion, anxiousness, and anxiety-inducing aspects of being human, right? What is it? What is it that encourages people to do that? I mean, we found cave paintings that are, thousands and thousands of years old. And you think about what culture might have been like then, what was it that encouraged somebody to take a dye or something and paint a picture of an animal on a cave wall?
So people should avoid such kinds of music to avoid trauma and other kinds of mental health issues, according to you.
No, I mean, I don't think people should avoid music.
I mean the sad songs, depressing lyrics.
Yeah, I understand what you're laying down. I think that you can get into a depressive cycle, for example. I think that it's natural to feel sad. And if music is a way to express those emotions in a safe environment, like if you need to cry and you play a really sad aria, chances are you're going to cry. And that's okay. If you need music to help you explore emotion in a safe and healthy way, I think that's commendable. I do think, though, that there is I don't really want to say a darker side, but maybe just a side that you need to be conscious of. Like, for example, in algorithms, like in TikTok or in Facebook Reels or any of those things, right, that you start going down into I call it like into a hole, right? It's like, I went into a Facebook hole. I'm sorry. I went into a TikTok, TikTok hole, because you start kind of feeding into that, right? Where you're sad. So you just listen to sad music, and then you're sad more. And so you just listen to more sad music, right? You have to try to find a balance, right? Just like in life, it's not all going to be wonderful, but hopefully it's not all horrible as well, right? Hopefully there's some in between there. I think that the goal is to try to find a balance. I listen to music for all kinds of reasons. I mean, people listen to music to clean their house, right? Usually when you're cleaning your house, you listen to some upbeat music that keeps you, energized. It keeps you going, right? So that you're like, all right, I can do more laundry. I'm going to go. I can do it because I'm listening to this techno beat or whatever. So there's many ways that you can use it, I think, for your greater good. I think it is just good to think about just your natural mental state. Right? Have I been locked in my room for 3 days listening to, the saddest arias ever written? I mean, hopefully not. But if you have been, hopefully you can go, okay, now I need to leave, right? I need to leave this room. I need to leave this music for a little bit. I need to have a different experience, right?
What if such kinds of music be replaced by positive sounds instead of sad music? And we talk about the
Sure.
good aspects of life instead of focusing on the people that have left you or manipulated you. People can
Yeah.
come to your therapy instead and
Yeah.
heal themselves
Yeah.
rather than stay in a room locked and have negative thoughts. What would you
Yeah,
say about
definitely.
that?
I think that, again, you're looking for a balance, right? Every person is going to feel sad. You're going to feel sad at some point in your life. To think that you will never cry or never feel sad is just not realistic, right? But in the same breath, you can get into what they call like toxic positivity, right? Where it's like, no, everything is sunshine, everything is roses. It's like, okay, there's two extremes, right? You're wanting to find a balance. You're wanting to find a happy, healthy flow between those states, just like between the frequencies, right? When I'm playing my singing bowls, you want to find a nice transition between them, so that it's not this abrupt, awful thing, right? Yeah, there's so much there to unpack. I think that's why I try so hard to tailor things, to what the individual needs, right? Something that I find very peaceful and relaxing, like listening to the rain, YouTube, I'll put YouTube videos on in the background while I'm working. That's just rain sounds. It's nothing, it's just rain. It's relaxing, but on a subconscious level, it affects you. You just start feeling more calm. You don't even notice it. It just happens. And that's a beautiful thing. You can do that for yourself, right? If you just want to experiment with a small change that you could make, but then you need to find what works for you. Like my rain sounds in the morning, my husband, he might be like, could we just, can we not listen to the rain this morning? Can I listen to, can I just not have anything? Or can I listen to ocean waves or just, something different, please. Or maybe he wants to listen to something that's like a lecture, something more intellectual to stimulate his brain. It depends on the person, right? So it's worth taking some time as an individual to sit down and think about, what reaction do I get when I play this type of music? I mean, there's like, I think it's called rage metal, it's just a lot of screaming, and I get it because as a human being, we all experience those strong, emotional responses. So it's another way for a person to express that, right? And to let it go, let it out, let it go. A physical manifestation would be like break rooms where you can go in and just smash things. It's a controlled environment. It's safe. You're not going to harm anything that's important or anyone that you love, right? So take that aggression out on, a bunch of plates. That's healthy. Why not? Yeah, I think that there are infinite ways that you can customize sound and therapy. And that's one of the things that I find really just fulfilling, is helping people find what works for them.
Is it possible to use binaural beats or sound frequencies for things like focus, manifestation, or healing trauma?
Yes, it is. Sound frequency, sometimes people will have a very profound emotional reaction they're not expecting. So you can have the singing bowls playing, you can have drums and chimes, and the person can be in a very relaxed state, and then all of a sudden they're crying. And that's natural. There's something in the body that needed to be released, and that environment created the perfect moment, the perfect place, and I have Kleenex just in case, right? There's no shame. There's no shame there. I think that especially men, I think it can be very difficult for men to connect with their emotional side because of societal expectation. And so I strive just so much to create a space that's safe, right? Your masculinity is in no way tied to if you cried during a sound healing session, right? You are still, you, right? You're still amazing and wonderful and intelligent, right? None of it is a weakness. It's part of being human and connecting to that part of yourself, so that you're not constantly suppressing it. You can combine it with, positive affirmations. You can combine it with meditation, similar to what I was discussing about, like when Dr. Deal is doing the meditation where he's counting down from 10, 10, 9, 8, down to 5, feeling alive, feeling connected, feeling peaceful and that you are where you're meant to be, right? All of those things can make a profound difference for someone. And again, it's really just being a guide, right? You're helping someone get to a state that they can naturally get to. It's part of who we are.
Absolutely. Are there risks to using random binaural beat tracks found online without proper guidance or intention?
I think there are some risks. I think you should listen to your body, right? Listen to you. Trust yourself. You know how something is making you feel. If you are listening to a track and you start feeling really anxious, if it gives you a headache. I've had some clients where if you play a 40 hertz frequency, they feel like they went into a bath of warm water. They're like, oh, this is wonderful. Please, this is great. Keep playing it, for a little bit. And then you have, another client where maybe I'll play the 40 hertz frequency. As soon as they hear it, they're like, nope, no, turn that off. I can't. It's like, okay, neither answer is incorrect, right? What is it doing for you? And what are you looking for? Are you wanting to release some emotion? Is that why you're listening to the sad song about your ex? Is it a way for you to grieve the relationship in a healthy way where you can let go, some of those feelings and wish them well, right? And not hold on to the pain of it. Yeah, all of those things can help. I do think that it can make a difference too if someone is trained in music. I'm not trying to say that I'm going to be much better than you if you were playing a singing bowl, right? But I think that my ear may be different because of the amount of sounds and tapestries and symphonies and, just things that I have heard combined together. That is going to influence the way that I generate a sound bath, versus someone maybe who isn't as trained in music or hasn't heard as many frequencies or combinations of instruments.
So according to you, do hospitals also need sound therapy? And also mentally different people also need this therapy, according to you?
Yes, I would say emphatically yes. Just as a personal experience, my sister before she passed, she was in the ICU, and she was very ill. Obviously, she's in the ICU, and there was a woman who came. She volunteered. And she came and she played the cello. That's it. She just came and she played the cello, and I found that it's making me get emotional, but I found that just so comforting. One, that someone would do that they would come of their own free will, with no monetary expectation, right? She just came for no other reason than to hopefully provide some comfort, to the people that are there, to the family that's there, right? With their loved one in such a vulnerable state. It was beautiful. It was one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard. And I've heard master concerts, with, amazing things, but the environment, your emotional state, your physical state, all of these things impact the power and the effect of the music. I do think very strongly that hospitals should have relaxing music or options for people to play relaxing music, in their room. When I had a surgery at Banner, they had a channel on their TV that was just fish. It was just fish and relaxing, music. And I think I spent more time watching that channel than anything else. You can watch some, wild, Neo or The Matrix or, all that stuff too, if you want to distract your mind. But I found the fish and the relaxing music to be the state that I wanted to generate in myself, right? To help myself heal. There's a reason when you are in a medical place that's just very vulnerable that sometimes they will put people into medically induced comas, right? Because the state of sleep is the state when your body is naturally repairing. So not needing to utilize those resources on other things, right? Because you're sleeping, then the body can focus on what's really important. And I think having relaxing music in that environment would be profoundly helpful. Yeah. Doctors listen to music when they're performing surgery too, right?
I agree with you.
Yeah. That's wonderful.
Do you think sound frequencies can actually facilitate or accelerate manifestation, or is it more about inner alignment?
Good question. I think that's more, I think that's a combination there. Much like when I was talking about participation, right? When you come in for the sound therapy session, right? Are you avidly willing, right, to see what happens? It can be as simple as that. I came, I'm going to be open-minded, and we're going to see what happens. I think that you will have a more positive experience from approaching it like that than if you were to come into the session going, okay, prove it to me. Show me right here on this chart, give me a graphical representation, and a flow chart by 3, you're going to experience the sound either way, right? You're going to feel the vibration in your body either way, whether you come into it open or you come into it kind of combative, or skeptical, not necessarily combative. But yeah, that alignment, I think if you can be aligned to it, sound wise, energy wise, right? Emotionally, intellectually as well, right? I'm open. I want to see what might happen. Maybe a sense of wonder about it. You will have a much more profound experience. And I think it can affect the outcome. I really do think it can.
Can sound therapy help access past lives, assist in karmic clearing, or connect with our higher self or the astral realm?
Yes, I do believe it can. I think sound, especially sound frequencies or music from a specific period of time. For example, and this is like a current example, right? Patients that have Alzheimer's, if you play music from their youth, from when they were going to dances, or when they were young and they were out dating or whatever, any music that spoke to them, they almost revive. There's a video of this ballet dancer, and it's incredible. Gonna make me cry again, but it's incredibly moving, because she's in this sort of catatonic state, and then they put headphones on her, and they're playing a piece of music that she had danced to at one of these famous ballet companies. I can't remember the specific one, but you can see her just come alive all of a sudden. There's something in the brain that triggers that she's there again. Like, she's here in her wheelchair, in her current state, but in the same breath, she's there. She's dancing, and she's moving, she's moving her hands, she's moving her arms, and it's incredibly moving and beautiful. If you haven't seen it, I would encourage you to go look for it, just to experience it. I mean, as far as like karmic cleansing, I mean, think about how you feel after you, like a physical representation would be like after you have a massage, right? Sound therapy is like a sound massage. Your body feels it. You feel the vibration. You naturally release your tension. You naturally release, toxins and things like that in your body, right? When you get a massage, they're always like, drink water, because your body is flushing, your muscles were moved around, right? It's similar with sound therapy. It's less, I think less physical, right? You're not touching as much, but you can use like tuning forks on specific points of the body to feel the resonance. If you take a tuning fork and you put it here on your sternum, ring the tuning fork and you put it here, you can feel the vibration through your body, through your skeletal system. And it's very moving to feel that, and anyone can feel it. And I think that it can really affect you in a positive way.
How do sound frequencies support emotional release or energetic detox at a cellular or energetic level?
That's fascinating. There's actually, and I know I keep quoting this gentleman, but I found his research just fascinating, Dr. Lee Barton. He's talking in his video about patients that had fibromyalgia. And there was a patient that had extreme pain, where she couldn't lie down. She had pain sitting, like an awful headaches of just debilitating, right? And they used the 40 hertz frequency again, to help her. And they found over these sessions of treatments, I think it was like 15 weeks, something similar. I apologize if I quote the wrong amount of time, but it was a substantial period of time with about 3 times a week, 30 minutes at 40 hertz. And her pain had gone away. She was able to be off of medication. And she found that she felt, so much better. She got better quality of life back. I've found too with sound therapy, I've assisted clients I had a client that has Parkinson's. And during the sound therapy session, he actually fell asleep, which is, again, an incredible compliment But he was able to reach that state of relaxation, right? Where he wasn't having tremors. He was relaxed. He was, he had found that calm place. And so, by utilizing that frequency, you could balance a physical aspect of the body through an external source. I think that's really powerful and just fascinating.
Can sound therapy help people move from being stuck or overwhelmed into clarity and empowered decision making?
I think if you can utilize a frequency or a meditation or a sound therapy to quiet some of the noise, right? I mean, we talked about a binaural beat, right? Two different sounds happening, or the festival, with this wild atmosphere, but to be able to kind of dial it down, right? If you can focus like that, then you can focus on your goals, right? You can focus on where you want to be. You can move toward that in just a very prescriptive pattern, right? To find where you want to go. I think that balancing the nervous system too can help you get out of that fight or flight mode, right? And if you're out of fight or flight, you can think clearer, right? If your body's not constantly going, okay, where, do we need to, are we going to be attacked? Like, what's going to happen, right? Do we need to go? Like, do we need to leave? If you can move out of that, you can experience just a much different state of calm. And even something that could be a difficult decision, like maybe changing a job, or what are you going to study in college? Maybe changing your degree. Maybe you decide that, you're going to move into a completely different field. That happens a lot. But if you can get to a point where you can find that calm, you can move toward that decision in a more rational way, that also is more healthy for you.
Have you witnessed profound transformations from your clients, and what made those shifts possible through sound?
Yes, I have. I think a very profound shift for me that I experienced with one of my clients was it was an elderly lady who came in. She's very, very anxious. She was experiencing heightened states of anxiety and stress, where I just felt so bad. I felt so bad for her. You could tell she was just so tight and so wound up. I mean, if you could see her physical vibration, she would be phasing in and out, because she was just that stressed out, and that, just all caught up in a little ball of anxiety and pain. So when she came into my sound therapy room, we talked for a little bit about if there were specific instruments that, that she liked or that she didn't like. She's like, I don't know, anything's probably fine, that kind of thing. And so I explored different tones and different resonances, to see what had that response in her body, right? Like, are her shoulders dropping? Did she move her hands down? Are her eyes blinking? Are her eyes closed even? Because she declined the mask, which that's perfectly fine, of course. So I needed to find other ways, right, to get her to a state that was more relaxed. And the first session that we had, I felt that she had relaxed a little bit, but when she went to leave, she was like, oh no, I don't know if it helped. I don't know. I'm not sure, that kind of thing, because she's so amped up. But then she came back again a week later, and we did the session again. And she did reach that form of relaxation. And then she kind of panicked a little bit. and she said, I panicked because I thought, oh, that feels so great. I don't want it to end. It's going to be over. Oh no, that kind of thing. And I was like, oh no, But I told her, what's so profound about that, though, what you've taught yourself, right, is that you can get to that state. So you can be that relaxed. You can let go of all of that anxiety and stress, and you can find that, that moment of peace. So the next session that we had, she was able to have a more extended period of time where she was in that peaceful flow state, right, where she was just enjoying the experience for what it was, and giving herself permission, right? Give yourself permission to let go. You know what it feels like to walk around anxious and stressed out. You know what that feels like because you've been doing it, right? And it's not working for you anymore. So that's why you're coming in, right? You want to try to find that natural relaxed state. Well, let's get there, right? Let's get there together. And I think I found that very profound that she was able to find that. And now, as we have, future sessions, I think that state will last longer for her. She'll be able to be in it more during the actual sound therapy session itself, and then have that effect continue with her, throughout the rest of her day, or maybe even a couple days after.
Is there a simple sound-based daily ritual or practice that beginners can use at home to ground and heal themselves?
Yes, and I would encourage you to experiment and find one that works the best for you. You've seen, I'm sure you've seen the videos or documentaries with the Tibetan monks, right? Who sit in the, lotus position, and they're just intoning Om, which is considered like a universal sound. It's a very neutral sound. Anybody can say Om, it's not difficult. And then you can add a vocal quality to it. You don't even have to have an instrument. You are one. You're a walking instrument, right? So you can just simply make a tone that's comfortable at a comfortable pitch in your voice, and just repeat it, Om, and then end on the M and keep the resonance going. As you practice it, you can have that tone, extend a little bit longer, or you can vary the pitch depending on, what you're looking to achieve. There's a very meditative quality of just making one sound over and over, and, again, giving yourself permission, right? Real or imagined. I'm going to give myself permission to sit here, even though I'm, someone else might think I look silly, well, it doesn't matter, right? I'm going to sit here in this space at this moment, on this podcast with Blaze, and I'm going to go, Om. And you will find it will affect you. It will affect you. You can also get the little ocean drum, right? Get the little ocean drum for yourself. You can even get them on Temu. They're not very expensive, Just get this little ocean drum and sit there for about 15 minutes and see how close you can get it to an actual wave. And then pay attention to how that feels in your body. What happens, right? From a scientific perspective, what happens, right? Do you slow down? Do you naturally slow down because you know what a wave sounds like and you're trying to recreate it? And to do that, you need to move in a certain, rhythm. Do you get yourself to breathe, before you start moving it, so that you're kind of more at a state of equilibrium, right? So you're a little more calm before you start moving it. Or do you start moving it and then you realize, okay, this is not sounding like a wave. It's just, loud and crazy. So what do I need to do for me? And that's a visual and a kinesthetic, representation with that actual instrument of finding that pattern that gives you that state of calm.
Absolutely. Mantras help a lot, and we do it daily.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes. Mantras, of course. I mean, there's the entire Ayurvedic medicine. There's this wonderful book. I want to see if I think I've got it right here. It's called Sound Medicine, How to Use the Ancient Science of Sound to Heal the Body and Mind. It's by Dr. Couldry. She's an MD and she's a neurologist. Phenomenal. She talks about her experience of going back to India from her childhood and learning mantras for herself, and how they impacted her life, and then how she utilizes those to help her patients as well. Anyway, it's a really good read. I recommend that book too.
We have been learning all of that from the moment we are born, because we are in India.
Yes. Yes.
So we have been surrounded by mantras, all sounds and everything.
Yeah, I'm jealous, I have to admit. I'm just scratching the surface myself.
So people in India have extensive knowledge about all this.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's such a beautiful It's such a beautiful culture and such a beautiful practice to develop a mantra, to create your own mantra too, like a personal mantra. I find that just incredibly beautiful. I think I'm still exploring what that might sound like for me.
There are several mantras actually. You can also chant Om Namah Shivaya. You will feel profound difference actually.
Yeah. Yes, well, sound has power, right? Even the ancient Egyptians, when they built their pyramids, there were specific chambers that were designed for the frequency that could be generated. They had healing tones that they would create in those chambers, that the way that it bounced off the wall, right, to create the feeling in your body. There's a reason, right, that they specifically create it at that angle to make that sound. It's fascinating how many different cultures have utilized music and sound.
You should come to India and visit our temples.
I would love to. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, no, I would love to. I would absolutely love to. That's definitely on my list of experiences that I would love to have, to actually go to
And
a
your
temple.
manifestations can also be fulfilled if you come here. There are many places. And
Yeah,
such vibrations and different secrets about your life you will be able to uncover.
that's fascinating. I'll have to go. I've been fortunate with my other profession. I'm a project manager in technology project management, and I've been fortunate to work with several students in my capacity there at the university. And some of my students have been from India, and I just find it fascinating. Such wonderful people, such a beautiful culture, and the incredible amount of bravery that it takes to come to a completely different country and study a subject in a completely different language at like a master's or doctorate level. That's just highly commended. I think that is wonderful. But if I do go to India, I'm sure I have several wonderful people that I know that'll be like, oh, you must go here and you must see my family. I had a wonderful student that I worked with many years ago whose family. She took a picture with me standing next to her, and I'm about 5'10" and a half. I'm a pretty tall lady, and she was about 5'5", so she's the smaller lady. And they showed the picture to their tailor, and they actually made me a chudihar. So I have traditional Indian dress that fits me. And it's one of my treasured gifts.
Where do you see sound therapy evolving in the next few years? Will it find a place in mainstream wellness or even medicine?
Well, I hope so. I think that now that we can, at least from the Western side of the hemisphere, right now that we can kind of more scientifically, research these things, right, that we can see in the brain, the actual MRI, the CAT scan or whatever, and see where different areas are lighting up and the effect that these sounds can have on the body, that we can measure things like the heart rate, the blood flow, all of those. I think that there will be less stigma to it, of it just being, oh, it's, it's woo woo, or it's, it's just, it's somebody with a crystal in their living room, which it is that too, but it's also medicine, and it can make a profound difference for people. I wish that Western medicine embraced sound more than they do. Like we talked about the example at the hospital, right, in the ICU with that lovely woman who came and donated her time and played the cello, right? Is something like that. I mean, if they could play, the healing frequencies, right? They could play 528 hertz. I wonder if it would have an effect on people. I think it would. And again, real or imagined, right? If you're getting a much more positive health outcome, if people are recovering faster from surgery, if they're feeling better, if they're thinking better, if their neurons are firing more by hearing 40 hertz and sitting in a chair and feeling the vibration of it, why wouldn't you do it? Why wouldn't it be something everybody wants to learn about and utilize in their practice? That's where Eastern medicine is just light years ahead of us. I mean, it's just true. We're finally starting to go, oh, yes, maybe some of those herbal remedies and natural remedies, are things that we should pursue. Well, of course we should. Uh, there's centuries of studies and practice of where it's helped people.
So, according to you, can sound therapy change our destiny?
Wow, that's fascinating. Yes, I think so. I mean, even beyond sound therapy, sound in general changed my destiny from as a little tiny kid, just loving music and then singing in little choirs, right? And then going to college and deciding, well, I'll study music because I like it. I think it's wonderful. And I'm sure college is going to be hard, as a little tiny freshman Jennifer, I thought, oh, I guess I'll study music because I like it. Little did I know I was light years behind in music theory, in key signatures, all of this. I went into college not really knowing that. That's something that as a vocalist, unfortunately, we don't spend as much time teaching kids, but that's another subject. But yes, I think it can profoundly affect your destiny. I love music. I got into singing. I started studying it professionally. I got into opera and learning about that entire genre of music. The breadth of it is it's limitless. I can study it for my whole life, even just opera, and I would never exhaust everything that's been created. Right. So my destiny then was impacted through meeting my husband, as he's a hypnotherapist. And so then the idea of utilizing sound for mental health and hypnotherapy combined together through just our conversations and our individual fields of study, and then reaching that kind of that meld, which is what encouraged me to form Soul Ecotherapy and launch my business to help people. I wish I would have known. I wish I would have known more about it earlier, but I'm so excited that I found it. Now, and I'm in a position where I can explore it fully, and then share what I find, with other people to help them find that natural state, right? Everyone can get there. It's just what tools or what instruments, what visualizations, what mantras, what is it that resonates so deeply with Blaze, right, to help you find that state. And it's going to be different for you than it would be for me or for my husband or for, that lovely lady that came in that was having all the anxiety, right, that couldn't find that relaxed state because she was just hyper aware all the time.
So, do you believe this is a past life gift that you are very interested in this?
Oh, that's a fascinating question. I think personally that I have had many past lives. I think that in one way or another, art or music or dance has been there in every iteration. I just feel it on a soul level. I know, again, real or imagined. But I feel deeply that yes, because it's such a passion of mine. I cannot envision a time in my life where I would ever not be involved in music in some capacity, or it wouldn't touch my life in some way.
So, the final question for anyone curious about experiencing your work, how can they reach you or book a private session with Soul Ecotherapy?
Oh, yes. I have a website. It's soulecotherapy.com, and that soul is in your soul, SOUL. And I also work in partnership with Doc Hypnosis through the Doc Hypnosis Wellness Center. Our phone number it's on the video here too. I have it on my background, but it's 602-314-1907. And we also have contact forms available on Doc Hypnosis or on Soul Ecotherapy. You're welcome to reach out to me in either form is fine, or give us a call to set up a free consultation. We can discuss, what you're looking to work on, and then we can schedule a session.
Thank you so much for joining the show, Dr. Jennifer.
Thank you so much for having me. It was my pleasure.